Hello and welcome. My name's Ryan Johnson, and this is the Saltcast. Today, I welcome Paul Johnson and Jason Parr. Welcome.
Thanks, Ryan. It's good to be here.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
I am really excited about today and tomorrow in Idaho is going to be 40 degrees. We're going to see some
Heyo.
significant melting of the snow.
You finally get above freezing.
Yeah. Sometimes I wish I could spread salt just all over.
I see what you did there. I see what you did. It's hoodie day in Dallas, but tomorrow's going to be like 80 degrees. So
I got a tea time scheduled for tomorrow and Saturday because it's going to be like 70 down in Vegas. So that's where I'm going.
All right.
Sorry, Ryan. But you enjoy the 40
I'll
degree.
take 40 and sunny. Man, I am not going to complain.
Yeah, especially after all the snow you guys have gotten and the freezing temps. Like, no, need a break.
We had 3 inches yesterday.
It snowed 3 more inches yesterday?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, when I took the kids to school, there was a big old wreck because of how slick it was. Pieces of car everywhere. It was crazy.
Oh, poor
everyone was okay. But
that's good.
But every police officer was there because not much happens in Rigby, Idaho. So they were pretty excited.
Some action.
Yeah. But today, guys, Paul, you missed out last episode because Jason and I, we talked about the 6 pillars of a successful sales tax department. Something to that. And so you missed out on a whole discussion about, Lot's wife, because that's not the salt pillar we're talking about. But we're talking more about the structural pillars, that hold stuff up and that
foundation.
If you knocked one out, stuff could crumble, the important pillars. So I kind of want to expand on that today and kind of dive deeper into a pillar or two.
I like that.
Yeah, I love it.
What were the 6 pillars you guys chatted about?
Let me give you just a very brief reminder, and then maybe we can dive deep into each pillar on the next few podcasts so we can provide a little more insight and maybe even prompt some Q&A from the marketplace in what we think about these. But so number 1, Paul, can you guess what we always start with?
Starts with Nexus, baby.
It definitely starts with Nexus.
Baby. Nexus. I didn't mean to call you
baby. I'm flattered.
Starting out right.
Number 1, Nexus, right? We've got to figure that out. We've talked so much about that. The next 2 pillars kind of work together, but it's extremely important to be able to understand the taxability of what you sell, products and services, and collect tax on items that are taxable, obviously, but you want to be able to collect that at the accurate rate, the most accurate rate. And so pillars 2 and 3 would be rates and taxability, and we also kind of group those up and call that determination. You got to be able to make the right determinations. Just remembering that you could have been in 1, 2, or 3 states and you understood those tax laws, but now you're in 35 states. That's a lot more tax law to understand and a lot more rates to deal with.
Amen.
So those are 2 important pillars. The 4th one specifically would be, once I know where I have Nexus and I know what's taxable and I know what rate to collect, I'm collecting this tax, I've got to be able to remit that. I'm remitting that across much more states. And so it's just the process of compliance, making sure that you're capturing that each month, getting that properly on the right forms, and timely and accurately filing that and making payment for that. So that whole compliance process is a critical aspect of your sales tax department or sales tax processes. A couple of ancillary pillars to that, and I would say that these are pillars of the same size because they can create a lot of havoc when it comes to audits. But you definitely want to make sure that if your clients are claiming or your customers are claiming any type of exemption, that you're able to collect and manage exemption certificates and ensure that they're completed properly and filed properly so that they're available in case of an audit. That's a big deal. One side of the coin on sales tax that we don't talk a lot about in today's timing from Wayfair, because we've talked about sales tax so much and Nexus and getting compliant, getting registered, et cetera, is use tax, specifically on purchases that you make, ensuring that you're not overpaying tax or underpaying tax on your purchases of expenses to run your company and your operations or fixed assets, et cetera. So having some way to manage that and make sure that you've got some accuracy in tax that you're paying out of pocket when you're acquiring items. And then number 6 will be, no matter how accurate you are across the board, you're likely to get correspondence from the states. That could be informational information. That's redundant. Informational information
notices.
from the state.
Informational notices.
Or they could be claiming some inaccuracies or some other issues that need to be addressed and resolved, right?
Yeah.
You don't want notices to go unresolved or unacknowledged or unaddressed. That's really an important pillar. There's some arguments out there to say, to have a truly successful sales tax department or sales tax process, then you also need to recognize that audits happen. And so you need to deal with audits. Our argument is if you have these 6 pillars in place, and that creates a successful sales tax department, then audits resolve themselves, even though they will happen, because you're able to just present information and show that you've got everything in place to manage both sides of the coin. And then audits just seemingly go away, only because there's not much for a state to identify in those different situations. So anyway, I spent probably more time than you had wanted on those, but those are the 6 pillars of a successful sales tax department or the sales tax processes that you need to have in place. And so that begs the question, okay, how do we develop those or manage those? So maybe we just talk about pillar number 1, which is Nexus. And Paul has seen a lot of ways that people figure out whether they have Nexus or not. What we call a do-it-yourself approach, DIY. Maybe you're looking at a website and answering a couple questions and just trying to figure out, what your situation might be state by state. Maybe you're going through a software company or some other provider that can provide you some tools that you can enter information into, and then it responds.
Right. Well, we even have on our website a tool to help clients or even non-clients understand if they have Nexus. And from an economic Nexus perspective, we have a map with the thresholds and so on and so forth. So the DIY approach is not uncommon for sure, and it's one that companies use to, to kind of help get an understanding of where they're not registered, but maybe they should be registered. Because we encourage everybody who's buying and selling product or goods or services that they ought to review that Nexus footprint at least annually, if not more frequent for those that are continue to grow and see expansion, and maybe you're hiring more employees, or now your employees are working from home in this crazy world we are in. So reviewing that at least annually, right?
But, yeah. I got to tell you, if you go that approach, one of our core values at Pizer & Johnson is collaboration builds confidence. And we believe that because we've experienced that. Paul and I have worked a long time together. Ryan's been with us a long time. We don't make any decisions based on just one person's input, right? I don't make any decisions just on, even if I've really researched it well, studied it out, tried to determine is this the best approach, best direction, whatever the case may be. We don't make any unilateral decisions without counseling together and discussing the idea and getting some good feedback. And oftentimes, if you've studied something out, then you're moving in a good direction, but those additional nods from other individuals just gives you increased confidence in the decisions that you make. So the reason I say this is because a lot of times if it's a DIY, or worse yet, I would say, you've ran the data through a software package, and the package comes back and says, hey, you should get registered in these 10 states, and you should do voluntary disclosure agreements in these 15 states. And you're like, oh my goodness, that's really expensive. That's a lot of tax. I can see the savings, so I recognize that would be good. And so you just go do that, right? And sometimes it says, hey, in this case, file a historical registration. So register as if you started a year ago. And then, yeah, you're going to have to pay, file returns and pay taxes for that back period with penalties and interest. But because it's not material, we don't recommend a voluntary disclosure agreement.
Right.
Well, in the end, all we would say is collaborate with a professional, right? If you want to get on one of our free calls, people come to us often and they've already done their own study. They've already identified their risks. They're not coming to us and asking, hey, could you do this study? Sometimes it results in us doing a study because there's other items involved or other issues involved. But you bring it to us, we'll look at that and we'll have a good discussion. That doesn't cost you anything to have a conversation about that.
Right.
But that collaboration can go a long way. Because maybe it's not a historical registration, maybe it's a prospective registration, recognizing the error of your ways historically. Maybe it's a VDA, maybe it's not a VDA. Maybe we look at it state by state and just give you some background from our experience on how aggressive some states are and what the results could be if you just went out and did it yourself. So that opportunity to talk through the results just gives you much more confidence on whatever the next steps are going to be that you take. And we really mean this. It's not a marketing gimmick. There's no hard sell on our consultation. I wish you could talk to a lot more people that have been on these calls, because some people need what we do, and we end up providing some services to help them get compliant and move in the right direction. And some people don't. And we are perfectly fine if you step away or walk away from that call with greater confidence and peace of mind in the decisions that you're making, but don't really need what we have to offer. I can't tell you how many calls Paul has been on where Paul's response is, you know what? Based on a review of your Nexus footprint, if we looked at Nexus only, maybe you need to be registered in 35 states. But if we look at your products and determine their taxability, or better yet, we look at whether you're the responsible party to collect that tax, or it's a marketplace facilitator or somebody else. Paul often delivers the good news. We don't recommend you do anything. Or maybe you have a situation in 40 states, but our recommendation is you probably only need to move forward or do something in 5 states. Right? And so a lot of times, some of our highest reviews that we get online from people who have attended our What's Next call or our free consultation is how incredibly confident they are moving forward, even though they didn't need to move forward with Pfizer Johnson. Right? Some of our highest reviews.
There's a lot of peace of mind that comes from understanding what the responsibility is, what comes of that, and what are the pros and cons of doing that versus pros and cons of being compliant or not being compliant. From a business perspective, you have to understand that there are costs associated, there are risks associated to being registered and to not being registered. And so understanding where you have that obligation and requirement and liability, and then making the business decision. I mean, just yesterday, actually, we were on a call with a current client. They're registered in 30 plus states, and they're collecting very minimal amount of tax. And they said to us, what if I just either A, turned off my website sales, or I just turned the tax off on my website sales? Well, you understand where you have Nexus, where you have an obligation to collect and remit the tax. And if you're not going to collect the tax, here's an estimate of what that tax obligation would look like. You multiply that by 3, 4, 7 years, even worst case scenario. And if that's going to hurt the business down the road, then yeah, you ought to stay registered. If it's not going to hurt the business, then yeah, you've definitely got an argument to deregister and just close the account and roll the dice and hope that the state doesn't come knocking. There are some risks associated with it, but from a business perspective, cost benefit analysis, you just have to make those decisions. And so there's a lot of peace of mind that comes from understanding, okay, what are the risks and what are the pros and cons, and how do I mitigate those? And then from a business perspective, being able to make an educated decision because you have all the facts, you have all the pieces in front of you to understand what that looks like and how it could potentially end up, worst case scenario. So it's big. It's very collaboration. It goes a long, long way, and especially when it comes to Nexus. I mean, I can't tell you how many DIYs I've looked at, or how many recommendations from a software company, or what have you, that were just incorrect. Well, no, the threshold is not $100,000 in Texas. It's 500,000. Are you sure? Yeah, here's the legislation, and here's where you can find it. Oh my goodness! So I'm glad I didn't register in Texas. I mean, just there's some peace of mind and some confidence for sure that comes from the collaboration.
Yeah, no doubt. And our primary core value is when you help other people, you help yourself, right? All the way down the road. So that's our purpose in providing these. It's unfortunate that in our industry, we have valued our knowledge and experience so much that oftentimes there's some sort of entry-level fee to even speak to us.
Yeah.
That's why I love podcasts. That's why I love the conversation that we have, and even doing some webinars down the road, I think, where you can disseminate some of this information and build some confidence in the marketplace. But to charge you to collaborate on something like that, we're just not going to do that. We want to help people. We want to help them gain confidence in their next steps, and we acknowledge that we are experts in the field of sales and use tax, and we have a lot to offer in that regard. But we would only charge when we're really providing a value-added service, right? Not just some peace of mind and confidence in next steps. We even met with an international company yesterday, and they were just sharing in their country that paying for the consulting up front before contracting to do some sort of work is just unheard of. And so as they are introduced to U.S. consulting firms and opportunities, they've been kind of surprised by the number of people who want to pay to talk, so to speak. And that's just not our world. So truly, not a hard sales call. We want to give out good information. We want you to have good information, but most importantly, we want you to make decisions based on really good information. So we'd love to hear from you, love to learn what's going on in your world, and help you a little bit with sales tax if that's what you need.
Amen.
Shout out to our founding partner, Andy, who wrote the book, Start with Nexus, right?
There you go.
There it is.
That's where it's at.
Right behind you.
Pillar one.
Yeah, I think that's great. And, it's important to build out that pillar, and, it's like we can provide that collaboration, and that's what we want to do. So come on in, stop on by. Let's chat.
Oh, I thought you were about to sing a jingle. I wasn't sure maybe if you'd come up with the jingle.
I'll just auto-tune that part, and then
there you go.
And then turn it into a jingle.
There you go. I thought you were about to do one of those "Won't You Be My Neighbor," but yes. We'd love to chat.
I used to, being a dad, one of the favorite parts of being a dad for me is embarrassing my kids. And so as I used to walk my kids to the bus stop, they won't let me do it anymore. I would turn on, the Mr. Rogers jingle, but they would just embarrass them. So now they don't let me walk to the bus stop with them. So I've ruined
That's
that.
rough.
Lesson learned.
That's rough.
But guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Great discussion, and we hope to see you on another one.
Thanks,
All right.
Ryan.
Catch you later.